the first time I heard the scratching inside my walls. I thought it was just a mouse. It was 2:37 in the morning. I remember the exact time because the blue glow of my phone lit up the dark room as I checked the clock. Scritch, scratch, scritch. The sound came from somewhere behind my bed. At first, I didn't move. Old houses make strange noises at night. Pipes expand, wood shifts, and sometimes animals get into the walls. At least, that's what I told myself. I had moved into this house about 6 months earlier. It was an old 2-story place on the edge of town. The rent was cheap, and the landlord seemed eager to get someone inside as quickly as possible. Looking back now, that should have been my first warning. The scratching continued for a few seconds and then stopped. I sighed and turned over, pulling the blanket over my head. Just a mouse, I whispered to myself. But deep down, something about the sound felt wrong. It wasn't random like an animal moving around. It almost sounded careful. Like something trying not to be heard. Part 2, the strange footsteps. The noises didn't stop after that night. In fact, they got worse. At first it was only scratching. Then I started hearing soft thumps inside the walls. Thump. Thump. Like someone shifting their weight. The sounds usually happened late at night, always between 2 and 4 a.m. I bought mouse traps. Then rat traps. For a few nights, the house stayed quiet. But one night, while I was sitting on my couch watching TV, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Footsteps. Not tiny scratching sounds. Actual footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Moving through the wall behind the television. I muted the TV and sat completely still. Thump. Step. Thump. Step. It sounded like someone walking carefully inside the wall cavity. That's impossible, I said out loud. But the footsteps stopped the moment I spoke. The silence that followed was even worse. Part 3, the first sign. The next morning I decided to check the walls. Maybe there was some kind of hollow space or old ventilation system. I grabbed a flashlight and started examining the hallway. That's when I noticed something strange. One of the vents near the floor looked slightly bent. The metal cover had small scratches around the edges. Like it had been removed, and then put back. My heart began beating faster. I crouched down and slowly pulled the vent cover off. The opening behind it was dark. Too dark. I shined my flashlight inside. At first, I saw nothing but dust and old wooden beams. Then the light moved a little further in. And I saw something that made my stomach drop. A blanket. Folded. Hidden deep inside the wall. Part 4, someone was there. I stared at the blanket for a long time. It was old and gray, covered in dust, but it definitely didn't belong there. Nobody stores blankets inside walls. I felt a strange chill run through my body. Then I noticed something else. Next to the blanket was a plastic water bottle. Half empty. And it looked recent. Not dusty. Not old. Recent. Someone had been inside the walls. Recently. My hands started shaking. Okay, calm down, I told myself. Maybe a previous tenant hid things there. Maybe it had been there for years. But then I heard it. Right behind me. From inside the wall. A slow, quiet movement. Like someone shifting their body. And suddenly I realized something horrifying. Whoever owned that blanket might still be inside the walls. Part 5, the realization. I slowly backed away from the vent. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The hallway felt different now. Smaller. Like the house itself was watching me. I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. But then I noticed something else. On the wooden floor near the vent. There were tiny crumbs. Food crumbs. Like someone had been eating there. My breathing became shallow. And then, from deep inside the wall, I heard a whisper. So quiet I almost missed it. But I heard it. A voice. A human voice. Right behind the wall. And it said 3 words that I will never forget. I know you. I froze. My entire body locked in place as the whisper faded into silence. I know you. The words were quiet, but clear. Too clear to be my imagination. My first instinct was to run. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to get out of that hallway and leave the house immediately. But fear has a strange effect on people. Sometimes, it makes you do the exact opposite. Slowly, I leaned closer to the open vent. My hands were shaking so badly that the flashlight beam bounced across the inside of the wall. "Hello?" I said. My voice sounded weak. Smaller than I expected. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I heard it again. Movement. Not scratching. Not shifting. Breathing. Someone was breathing inside the wall. Slow. Heavy. Right on the other side of the wooden beam. I stepped back instantly. "Nope," I muttered. "Nope, nope, nope." I grabbed the vent cover and shoved it back into place, my hands fumbling as I forced the metal into the frame. Then I backed away down the hallway. My mind was racing. There was only one explanation. Someone had broken into my house. And they were hiding inside the walls. The police call. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. My voice sounded shaky as I tried to explain the situation. I think someone is inside my walls." There was a pause on the line. Then the operator asked, "Sir, can you explain what you mean?" "I heard someone whisper to me through a vent," I said. "And there's a blanket and water bottle inside the wall." Another pause. "Okay, sir, stay calm. Officers are on the way." Those 10 minutes waiting for the police felt like hours. I stood outside on my front lawn, staring at the dark windows of the house. Every shadow inside looked wrong. Every creak made my stomach twist. Eventually, a police car pulled into the driveway. 2 officers stepped out and walked toward me. One of them gave a small, polite smile. "So," he said. "Someone living in the walls?" I nodded quickly. "Yes. I heard them. They searched the entire house. Closets. Attic. Basement. Every room. Finally, I showed them the vent. One officer removed the cover and shined his flashlight inside. He leaned in further, scanning the narrow space. Then he sat back. "Well," he said. "There's definitely a blanket in there." My stomach dropped. "So you believe me?" The officer nodded slowly. But then he said something that made the fear even worse. "The space behind these walls doesn't go very far." "What do you mean?" "It ends after about 3 feet. My heart skipped. "But the footsteps," I said. "I heard footsteps." The officer shrugged. "Probably pipes or animals." Before leaving, they told me something that didn't comfort me at all. "If you hear anything again, call us." The second night that night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake in the living room with all the lights on. Hours passed. Midnight. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. For a while, everything stayed quiet. I started thinking maybe the police were right. Maybe it really was an animal. Maybe my mind had exaggerated the whisper. Then at exactly 3:12 a.m. I heard it again. But this time it wasn't scratching. It was a slow dragging sound. Like someone crawling. inside the wall behind the couch. My entire body went cold. The sound moved slowly, across the wall. Then it stopped directly behind me. And once again, I heard breathing. Slow. Close. And then, knock. 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 3 small taps from inside the wall. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the wall in front of me. Then the voice came again. Softer than before. Almost curious. Why did you call them? My heart nearly stopped. Because suddenly I understood something terrifying. Whoever was inside the walls had been listening to everything that I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Someone was inside the walls of my house, and they knew I had called the police. Every sound made me jump. The refrigerator humming. The air vents clicking. Even the wind outside brushing against the windows. But the worst part was the silence. After the knocking and the whisper, the house went completely quiet. Too quiet. Like whoever was inside the walls was waiting. Watching. Listening. By morning, my nerves were completely shot. I knew one thing for sure. If someone really was living inside the walls, I needed proof. So I went to the store and bought 2 small security cameras. They weren't anything fancy, just basic motion cameras that connected to my phone. My plan was simple. One camera would face the hallway vent. The other would sit in the living room. If anything moved, the cameras would record it. Setting the trap by evening, the cameras were installed. The hallway camera pointed directly at the vent cover. The tiny red recording light blinked quietly in the corner. For a moment, the house actually felt safer. Like I finally had some control. But deep down, I knew something else. If someone really had been living inside these walls, they probably knew the house better than I did. Night came faster than I expected. I turned off the lights and sat in the living room, staring at the camera feed on my phone. Nothing moved. Hours passed. 10 p.m. 11 p.m. Midnight. Eventually my eyes grew heavy. Maybe it really was just animals. Maybe the whisper had been my imagination. At some point, I must have fallen asleep on the couch. The notification my phone buzzed violently in my hand. I woke up instantly. The screen glowed bright in the dark room. Motion detected, hallway camera. My heart started racing. I quickly opened the camera app. The live feed appeared. At first, I didn't notice anything strange. The hallway looked normal. The vent cover was still in place. Everything was quiet. Then the vent cover moved. Just slightly. Like something inside was pushing it outward. I held my breath.